Hey everybody, it's Drew Scooter from Sleep With Me. It's Wednesday Wonder. I'm asking a question from Shelly, who asked, what's a super listener? And I'm putting out a short form of this video, but this will be a little bit longer, but hopefully still short because I got a lot of work to do. Thing of like, what is a super listener? And if you listen to Sleep With Me on a regular basis, you notice like this year, we're putting out a third episode a week, a repeat episode every week, in addition to the 2 new episodes a week we already put out, to service our audience better. And that is because of super listeners, right? We've been looking at our consumption numbers, which is like how much is one episode consumed or listened to. And the average number, depending on the platform, is like 143%, meaning like our episode is listened to on average like almost 90 minutes. But that's not a real average because it's spread across like people that only listen for 1 minute and people that listen to tons and tons and tons of episodes. But it does show that there is a demand for 3 episodes of Sleep With Me a week on the listening side. I don't think we'll ever financially or time-wise be in a position to put out 3 new episodes a week, though it would be a dream to shoot for. So what's a super listener, right? So I guess like a super listener could kind of be self-defined of like, do you listen to Sleep With Me on a regular basis and get a lot out of it? Do you feel super? Does it make you feel super? Then you're a super listener, right? And you can say super listener, or I guess stupor listener. That's probably something someone like Charlotte's already said, or somebody else. Stupor listener. I guess that's probably what we should be calling it. But like there is degrees of super listeners, right? And you could easily figure it out for yourself. Like, how many hours of Sleep With Me do you listen to a week? If you listen to more than 3 hours, you're falling on that super listener side, to up to like people that listen to 9 hours a night, right? Even if it's a repeat, it really doesn't make a difference on our end. It's the same thing, right? It's like almost like if you buy something and you use it over and over again versus, or you're renting, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know. So it's like, whether you listen to the same 3 episodes over and over every week, or you listen to every single thing we put out, it's just an interesting thing to think about. And our goal in 2025 is like not to cut back anymore. We've had to cut back a lot on the show over the past few years, and it hasn't worked. It's like, I don't want Sleep With Me to go away, right? I want to keep serving our audience and putting people to sleep. And so looking at the numbers, I was like, man, is this possible to test out in the beginning of 2025, ideally till May? And then will some of those super listeners like return, right? Return like and realize, hey, I should support this podcast, or I should support these sponsors, because it is a 2-way street, right? We're going to try to service the audience the best we can, and even in a more still sustainable way that we planned out. We're not going to overextend ourselves, right? And risk the podcast either. But it's like, I don't know, it's just an interesting question. Like, and just looking at the year-end numbers last year, like Spotify, I can't remember if it was like 20 times, like a super listener on Spotify was listening to like 20 times more than an average listener. But it's like also remembering that Sleep With Me is this weird, I don't know if is that a microcosm, or like there is the majority of way people listen, which is most people enjoy listening to the ad-supported podcast linearly. And I guess on average, those, like, if you look at it that way, they listen to about an episode and an episode. They listen to each episode 1.5 times. So we'll see with this new thing of like, I'm guessing our thing will fall down to like maybe 120%. That's what we've been at in the past, which means some people will still be re-listening to episodes and stuff like that. Ko wants my attention now too. It's just an interesting question. And then it's an interesting question with podcasts because everything we do is kind of listener supported, though we're trying to get some service the audience we have that likes the ad-supported episodes, and prefers a free podcast and listen linearly, like trying these automated ads, again, to service our audience the best we can, realizing, that like, even though most people listen to the ad-supported version linearly, that's not every listener. It may only be 51%. I don't know. We don't have those numbers, but it's like, that's why we have Bedtime Stories from Sleep With Me that comes out twice a week as a separate podcast with just story only episodes. And that's why we moved to Sleep With Me Plus about a year and a half ago, to have even more options for people that like to listen in these microwaves. If you want ad-free episodes, those are on Sleep With Me Plus. Tons of story-only episodes, all interrupts. You know what I mean? I've talked about it on the show all the time. I don't have to rehash that part. But it's like, how can we serve all of our audience, all of our super listeners? Like, I mean, the cool thing is, I didn't even realize it's like, so the skewing of the numbers is that there's people listening to a ton of episodes on one end and then people listening for only a few minutes on the other end that will never listen again. And I did figure out like a couple of years ago how to service that end too, of having sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you, which really did relieve a lot of work from me. Because in the past, like, those people would be incredibly dissatisfied and upset and send me pretty intense emails, like, telling me how much they disliked me in the podcast. But now the majority of those people hear those messages and they do find another sleep podcast or a sleepy audio solution, because we can see that in the numbers when you look at like podcast analytics and crossovers and stuff like that. So we have figured out how to serve the people on the far end of micro listeners that only listen to a few minutes of the show. There's no way I can keep saying sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you, you know? But it's like, some of those people will be served. Some of them only listen for a few seconds and they just don't like it and they move on. And then some of those people will hear that and they'll be serviced and find something else to help them fall asleep. And then we're trying to figure out sustainably how to serve the people on the other far end, which, like I said, is like a pretty broad spectrum, right? Of people that listen 3 hours or less a week. Those people are kind of like, really, those are people that are best served by the ad supported version of the show. And then everybody on the further end, it becomes tougher to service them. And that's what we have like kind of Sleep With Me Plus for, because that offers more options, but also enables us to make that sustainable, right? And get paid for the work, whether you're listening to an episode 500 times or once. Because we did come up with the idea of like selling episodes, but it's just not something that is sustainable either. Like, because it's like, the value of an episode to a person is like when you think about how much people used to pay for songs when you would buy songs off of, or maybe, and people might do, it's like, oh, like a song is 99 cents. And then an album is like whatever, $10, but it's like an episode of Sleep With Me is an hour long. Right. And the amount of work, you know, so anyway, it just never made sense to like sell episodes, because you could never get the pricing right. Because if we priced the episodes what they were valued at, no, we did try that. Like, and it just makes sense, right? It's like, that's why a subscription model fits better. But anyway, we're always trying to service people. If you ever need to get a hold of me, comments are not the best place. The best place to get a hold of me is use the contact form on our website to reach out. And yeah, but anyway, that's kind of, what's a super listener? It's a great question. Super listener. If you're asking, I mean, honestly, if you're asking questions and watching this video, you're a super listener. It's just the degree, but it's always like, hey, how much value do you get out of Sleep With Me? It's kind of like other things, and you use outside of Sleep With Me as a service or on a regular basis, and evaluating your subscriptions, right? Like, I'm evaluating a subscription I pay for something I read that I haven't read in a few months, and it's about to auto renew, and I'm like, okay, let me see if I'm going to use that reading service every day between now and the renewal thing. Okay, if I use it every day, like, how much is that value a day? Like, to me, like $1. Oh, okay. So if I use it 30 days, that's like $30. Okay, well, how much is the renewal? But if I don't use it for 7 months at all, it's like, oh, okay, well, so anyway, we're always evaluating this stuff, but it really comes down to like, what is your usage and what value, does it make your life better? Because it's like, for me, when I'm reading stuff, or this is a very niche example, but I don't want to get into it. Like, but it's like, oh, I really do take pleasure in that. So it is valuable to me. But then I'm like, oh, wait, well, then it becomes a deeper emotional thing, right? It's like, how come I stopped reading this stuff that really made me feel good and relax me by doing something else And then sometimes that's a good thing, right? People talk about these New Year's resolutions and paying for stuff. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, if I'm paying for that healthy thing, will it motivate me to use it more? And this is kind of like a reverse engineering for me. Like, it's like, oh, okay. I do look at that like a lot of times. That's how, when people ask me, man, now I'm really rambling. But anyway, just rambling. So there used to be a sponsor, Therabody, right, on Sleep With Me, and that's still a product I use. They haven't sponsored the show in years, but people will come to me in my personal life, or I'll loan it to them. Like, if they're local, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, you want to try? You're thinking about buying one? Like, try mine out. Like, only for a little while because I want it back." But then they're like, "Hey, like, well, what do you think?" Like, and I'm like, "Well, I use this like when I'm really in the zone every single day. But if not, I'd like to use it 3 to 5 times a week." I'm like, so if you're going to purchase something like that, think about that. Like, if you're going to use it 3 to 5 times a week, like that's what I told the person I loaned it to for a little while. I was like, okay, if you use this 10 times and then you think you buy it and you're going to use it 5 times a week, you're going to recoup your cost pretty quickly, or the value you get out of it, even if it's a more expensive thing. But yeah, if you only buy it and you're not going to use it, like, but it's interesting talking about sponsors of stuff I still use and love. But that's one of them. Like, I run a lot, and I use it to warm up, and I use it to recover, and I work out. So anyway, thanks everybody. Rambling over. That's a Wednesday Wonder. If you have Wednesday Wonder questions, send those in via the contact form on our website. And thanks.